Good afternoon, everyone. Department of Commerce, IQAC, and Department of Economics cordially invite you all for the national webinar on economics implications of Russian-Ukraine war on India. This is Asha, Assistant Department of English. Welcome you all for this national webinar. One of the wondrous things about community is that it enables us to welcome and help people in a way we couldn't as individuals. May I request Dr. Balaji, HOD, Department of Economics, to deliver the welcome address to the participants. Welcome, sir.
Myself, Dr. Balaji, HOD, Deputy of Economics, Chandrababu Jain College, Minju. It is my pleasure to welcome all the participants to the national webinar on economics implication of Russia-Ukraine war on India. I welcome to eminent speaker and resource person, Dr. Arun Mittal. Welcome, sir. A
Thank you.
warm welcome and heartful welcome to our Honorable Secretary, sir, Sri Lalit Kumar Ojain, and respected Principal, Dr. V. Nagajodi, and Vice Principal, Dr. N. Sujata, Madam, all the heads of the department, and faculty members, non-teaching staffs, and my lovable students. Once again, I welcome you all.
Thank you, sir. Principal's hard work may often go unnoticed, but these amazing leaders play a huge role in the success of faculty, staff, and students. Send them the physical or digital note to show your appreciation, sir. It's my honor to welcome our principal to present the presidential address to the participants. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am. It's a very good afternoon to all of you. Respected our President, Mr. Nehru Chandji. Respected our Secretary, Mr. Lalit Kumar Bhojji. Respected our Chief Guest, Dr. Arun Mittal. Respected VP and all the heads of the departments, my dear staff members, and my dear students, and all the participants, those who are watching online this particular national seminar on economic implications of Russia-Ukraine war on India. I really know it is a very peculiar topic, and all these years there are people who are suffering there, even from Tamil Nadu, students who have gone there to going to study MBBS. They were unable to continue their studies, and they were forced to come back to India. And there are some of our MBBS students that have expired in Ukraine war. And one side, the Russia, we are dependent upon them, particularly for the uranium fuel, particularly for our Petroleum atomic power station. So one side, no, we have this friendship with the country, and as another side, our friendship country, I think they are having a problem with another country. So this is a situation, a peculiar situation, which will have economic implications on India. So today we have with us Dr. Arun Mittal, sir, and he is going to address us on this. What are the economic implications are there on India due to this Russia and Ukraine war? With these few words, I will hand over the session to the comparator, Dr. Asha ma'am, for further proceedings. So thank you very much. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, sir. It's time to introduce our chief guest to the participants. What's embody power to inspire or motivate us, but it is only we who have a power to open up to see and feel it. I request Dr. J. Suresh Kumar, Assistant Professor, Department of Commerce, to introduce our resource person to the participants. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, madam. I, Dr. J. Suresh Kumar, Assistant Professor, Department of Commerce, Sri Chandrababu Jain College. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am happy and I am really privileged to introduce our chief guest and resource person of the day, Dr. Arun Mittal. Dr. Arun Mittal has done his schooling in Vaish Senior Secondary School. After his schooling, he has done his higher education in commerce during 92 to 2001. He possesses various expertise skills in various disciplines like educational leadership, management, and he has huge experience in curriculum design. Not only that, he has done certification program in digital marketing, and he is certified green belt in Six Sigma by KPMG. Previously, he worked as lecturer in Kadarnath Agarwal Institute of Management during October 2006 to August 2007. At present, he is working as assistant professor in Birla Institute of Technology in Noida since August 2007 till date. That is, he is having vast experience of 14 years and 10 months till date. He is handling various papers there like marketing, business law, and other general management subjects, including international business, business environment, etc. So it is our pleasure to have such a wonderful personality as a resource person for this national webinar. I welcome you personally, sir. Now it is over to Madam. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you so much, sir. It's time to invite our resource person, Dr. Arun Mittal, sir. The session is yours. Welcome, sir, to
Thank you.
please address our students.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm privileged to be here in the virtual mode, but yes, we are connected, and that matters. I'm my heartfelt gratitude to respected principal Professor V. Nagajoti, Secretary Mr. Lalit Kumar Jain, and Professor J. Suresh Kumar, Professor Parvati, Professor Balaji, everyone who is here. Uh, I feel honored to be connected and to share my views on the very important topic. And I must congratulate that you have come up with such a contemporary and such an important topic, which is the implications, economic implications of Russia-Ukraine war in the context of India. So, am I clearly audible? Anyone can just confirm so that I can.
Yes,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are absolutely audible, sir.
Thank you very much. So, when we talk, a lot has been written in the newspapers and magazines, and a lot has been discussed about the Russia-Ukraine war, and there are n number of topics which have been discussed. The severe and most important thing is the war is still going on. When we see it from a social perspective and humanitarian perspective, in 21st century, wherein United Nations and especially the leading countries in peace and harmony like India, when we are thinking of peace, harmony, brotherhood, we are amidst a war which there is a suspension, there is a doubt, there is a speculation that it may lead to a third world war. Amidst that, talking about economic issues is very important because a lot of damage has already been done in Ukraine and the war is still going on. A pulsing kind of war is going on, like some attacks every day happen, some results come, some statements come, and things are status quo, the things are not changing. Whenever there is an instability like this, we the students of management, commerce, economics, or of be it any stream, we should not think from a myopic view of the repercussions or implications of any war or any major macro event or global event. COVID-19 has been a global event, and post-COVID scenario, especially in Indian economy, was quite promising. One of the barometers of the economy is the stock market, and we witnessed such a huge jump in the stock market after COVID that we were all almost sure that yes, this is the time that we have recovered, and now we are looking forward, we are looking ahead for a uh, 3 trillion, 5 trillion, so 5 trillion and 10 trillion economy in India. But the problem that suddenly came was the Russia-Ukraine war, and it changed our, like we can say, on a lighter note, it changed the syllabus of economists. The reason is there are multiple implications of a war-like situation. We will take up them step by step, and I would try to contribute with my little knowledge. I will throw light on this topic. Now, the please do not be scared of the content which I have written, because it could be, you may see that it is huge, but it is in fact not. We'll be discussing the important aspects, and we'll create a scenario that how would the Russia Ukraine war has its impact on, especially on the Indian economy. So when we talk about the effects, there are effects on the stock market, there are effects on the import and export, there are effects on petroleum industry, the wholesale price index, the consumption, the commodity prices, whatever we import and we export. But before I proceed further, I would like to draw your attention to three very important aspects. And especially for students, the students may jot down also. There are three very important aspects of codifying, or I must say decoding, the jargons of Russia Ukraine war implications in Indian economy. First of all, we have to understand it on different time horizons, which is very important. So, we'll talk about the time horizons. Second, we should discuss the economic implications based on scenario analysis. And third, we should discuss on the industry specific note. So we'll try to explain these three things, because these three are the parameters, very important parameters of explaining any kind of scenario which looks disastrous. Okay, whether it is COVID-19, whether it is GST, whether it is demonetization. But fortunately, GST and demonetization were related to our own domestic territory and having very less or almost no foreign connections or implications. But COVID-19 had a lot in common with the certain countries like China and like India. Now, let us take first the time horizon. Now every day we are listening to the news channels and all, and they talk about the Russia Ukraine war. Earlier it was very in they gave lot of prime time to it, but now they're not giving lot of prime time, because now we have, like, we are trying to become used to of it. If we see the time horizons, I have a figure in front of you, and let's say this is a Standard and Poor's BSE Sensex, which was on January 2 and January 2 to January 16. We saw there is a very good steep rise in the stock market index, and then it fold because of there is a profit booking and correction. But as soon as we move to 24th Feb, this 20 and 27, in between 20 and 27, when the war breakout happened, and there is a steep fall from somewhere 57 500 to below 55,000, 50,000, 5,500 to 5,000. There is a fall of in 1 or 2 days, there was a fall witness was around 10%. Though the market recovered on the very next day, and it recovered gradually, but post COVID, we were so enthusiastic about the market, but it did not, uh, and it was happening also. But unfortunately, this event has disturbed the sentiments of the market. We would discuss on this also separately. The point here is how to study the impact of this war. In economics, we have two time lags. One is short term and the other is long term. But I would divide the short term also into near short term, and then we have short term, and then we have long term. Like if we see it on a quarterly basis, one is a real time. Real time is today. I don't believe even in the market, my approach is not like a trader or a speculator. Economists do not behave on daily basis. They do not take decisions on daily basis. They take decisions for a time frame, and that time frame generally is long term. But if we see it on say a quarterly scenario, now let us understand it. It's little technical, but it's very important. Let us understand it on a time horizon of 3 months. Now, in April, this is May, so April, January, February, and March. In April, we see the corporate results, and then we see the impact of the corporate results. The war breakout happened in February, later half, third week of the February, and as a result, there was a fall in the market. There is a fall in the, but what happened with the commodity costs, the oil pricing, the rupee pricing? The oil actually, it went up, it shoot up to $130 per barrel, and then 105, and so on, above $100 per barrel. Now, when it shoot up in such a way, there was a mixed opinion of people that it would go high, it would go low, and finally it affected the stock market, oil companies, paint companies. I'll show you some of the examples later. So understanding time horizon is important because quarterly results come from the companies, and this quarter has discounted only 1 month or little more time of war, like 5 or 6 weeks of war, not more than that. But the next quarter would be more critical. Why the next quarter will be more critical? That looking into the war, I don't see that there is a chance that the war would end, because both the countries have their own powers, their own policies, and their own. So next quarter, the input cost which have increased in this quarter would impact the next quarter very badly. So I see a little pessimistic scenario in the corporate earnings with respect to the Russia Ukraine economic implications on corporate earnings, which are using metals as a raw material, petroleum and petroleum products as a raw material, like paint companies, like other metal processing companies and all. So there would be a downfall in their corporate earnings, and market is somewhere discounting it, and that is why there is almost a very bad scenario in the market. There is a very good profit booking at little top levels. Sell on rise is the strategy of the investors now, the traders now. So it's not promising, it's not that promising it should have been after recovering from the COVID-19 scenario. The second thing is, I discuss about the near short term, and we talk about the short term, that is 1 year, more or less similar consequences we can see. But when we talk about the long term, we have to do certain analysis which is more relevant to the long term. In long term, businesses try to find the alternatives. In international business, there are three terms: dependence, interdependence, and independence. Dependence means a country is more than 50% of its GDP comes from international business, or more than 50% of its activities depend on import and export. That is called dependence. But it is interdependence when it is good, less than 60-50%, but it is good number of good export and import, like India we talk about, right? Just 1 minute. Yes. So when we talk about interdependence, it is a very good scenario. We are an open system. We sell something to the rest of the world, and we buy something from the rest of the world. Okay. So that's a good thing. But dependence, when we talk about independence means we are a closed system. Like somewhere, North Korea is one little example. However, it's not 100% closed system, but they do not expose much to the rest of the world. Now, in a system where, in a situation where we have more exposure of our exports or imports, whatever it is, let us not think that we are importing, then we will be in a problem. Even if we are exporting, we can be in a problem. So whether it is export or import, I believe that in long term means more than 1 year, and maybe for 5 years, for 10 years, for 20 years. India as a country is going to be more dependent with respect to imports, and would be more diversified with respect to exports. Because in future, if you are planning to export to certain countries which have, it's not about Russia Ukraine only, it may be about tomorrow about the South Korea and North Korea, it may be tomorrow about the Balochistan and Afghanistan and Pakistan, it may be tomorrow about any two countries which may have some tension in their relationships. Why would we export or import from those countries? We cannot say it should be zero, but we would diversify our exposure in the long term. So I see, based on the analysis of economists, based on the news reports, and based upon the data in hand, the perspective in long term, India and Ukraine war would not impact Indian economy in a very high negative way. There would be some negative implications, but would not be so severe, because India and all other countries understand that they have to somewhere diversify their exposure with respect to export import, with respect to now. When we talk about, suppose, there is a very good example of renewable energy. There's a very good example of solar energy, ethanol, that we are using, or we have been increasing the consumption, so that we can somewhere avoid the or reduce the requirement of petroleum products and petrol, so that we can set up a scenario wherein we are not a crisis situation. Same is the case with the edible oil, same is the case with the other eatable and other products. We don't want a situation in India like Sri Lanka, where people struggled in their daily life for daily routine products. So we are very serious on that, and in long term, I'm sure that we have certain alternative policies to cope up with the economic implications. So we have studied it in a 3 month scenario, 1 year scenario, and 5 year scenario, the implications. Now, these are some glimpses of the effect on the stock market. Then we have, if we talk about our trading partnership with Russia, India is India's 25th largest trading partner. More or less, we are exporting, importing with 243 territories. Okay, just 1 minute, sir. Okay, so when we talk about Russia as our trading partner, we have been importing a lot from Russia, and we have been exporting also from Russia. There is a list of commodities, and some of the major commodities I can just show you. So we have exports in the pharmaceutical products to Russia. We have iron and steel exports, auto components, electronics, and tea. So of course, we are good in all that things, so we are exporting. And when we talk about imports from Russia, of course, the crude oil. So there was something like that India would be, being benefited with the crude oil prices, that because other European countries and even USA, they decided not to import from Russia, but eventually it will not affect in to a large extent the Indian requirement or benefits to Indian oil companies buying cheaper oils from Russia. It is not a long term strategy, and it won't survive for long. Though the petroleum products, crude oil, gold and precious stones and metals, of course, metals is an area wherein one needs to talk about. You see the positive impact on the companies like the power companies or the coal producing companies and fertilizers, that if there is a problem in importing these products, of course our domestic businesses would grow. And that we have seen in the past few months, 2 3 months, that coal prices, the simply the coal India stock prices went up. The metal stocks were doing very good, like Vedanta, like Jindal Steels, like Tata Steels, and fertilizer stocks were doing good, like Deepak Nitrate and other fertilizer stocks. So more or less these trade implications are positive also and negative also. So we have to find out how to diversify them and how to keep them in line. Now, this is an important slide that tells about impact of war on major commodity prices. So we see from gold to crude oil, the increase in the prices of gold, copper, agri index, base metals, zinc, aluminum, palladium. So the prices are in percentage. Like gold shot up only 1% as compared with the crude oil 24%. On the right hand side, the red bars, you can see the price increase in edible oil in February. My PPT is visible to all of you. This is just for confirmation, sometimes anyone can confirm. Okay. Okay, fine. Hello. Yes, my PPT is visible. Yes, it is visible. Okay, okay, no problem.
Visible browser. PPT is visible. Impact of war on major commodity prices.
Okay, okay, fine. So when we see the price increase on the edible oils in February, like soybean, soya oil, and palm oil, and this palm oil also came into limelight when Indonesia refused to uh, export the the palm oil to the other countries, right? Because they wanted to stock it out. They did not want a crisis, oil crisis, edible oil crisis. I must be being specific in their own country. Now, coming to the specific impacts of this war on effect on petroleum. Before that, I would I would like to say scenario analysis is to be done, and that is very important. Now, what is the scenario? First scenario is the war continues, which we can see. Now, I don't know why, but I don't see a third world war at all. That might be a speculation, that might be a gut feeling, but I believe that there would be someone to stop it, some country to stop it, and some group of countries to take a step on it. Because of course, no war is in favor of the mankind, economy, or as a whole. Now, if we talk about the scenario analysis, the worst scenario is the war continues and maybe Russia takes over Ukraine after some time, or it continues for some time and then there is a treaty or there is some negotiations and there is something that Russia and Ukraine ties up hands with each other and say it's okay, whatever has happened, let us look forward. But the possibility is little less, because the focus of Russia is now to crush Ukraine and give a statement to the rest of the European countries and world that they whatever they think is right. And that is why this scenario is more, there are more chances of this scenario. Now, if it happens, what would happen with the Indian economy? There would be some bad impact, because we can see that the imports from not only from Russia but also from the European countries would decrease. There would be a question mark. There would be, and India has to find in long term the alternatives for imports and exports. The best scenario, the good scenario is that it ends within a few days or a week. If it happens, let me tell you one very important thing. The first thing that reacts to any news is the stock market. Now in India, because of the RBI increased the repo rate 0.40%, and because of the federal rate increase scenario, the stock market is in the oversold territory. FIIs are selling every day, but fortunately, domestic institutional investors are very vigilant and they are buying. Amidst all this, there is the Russia-Ukraine war. Now, the market has fallen down from 18,000 plus to 16,300 something today. Okay. The last close was 16,200 something, and today it opened up good. And right now, I don't know at present where it stands. I'm talking about Nifty. So it's a 2,000 points cut in the market is explained by Russia-Ukraine war, the RBI repo rate, FII selling is because of the all these scenario, and the Federal Reserve rates and inflation. So these are the 4 or 5 reasons that the market has fallen down. And believe me, even if one becomes positive, the market would easily regain at least 25% of the shortfall. I mean, at least the market would regain 500 points as soon as the war goes down, and there would be a sentimental effect on the market, and it can move forward for the, because when market becomes positive, it becomes positive. When it becomes negative, it becomes more negative, right? So the first thing in a good scenario we expect is the improvements in our stock market. Second thing, the improvements in our commodity pricing, the raw material pricing, the petroleum commodity pricing, and all. So we import crude oil, coal, and diamonds from Russia. Crude oil and coal are the most important sectors for India because these are the energy sectors. And you see, the petroleum prices have indirect impact on all the industries, be it because it is directly related to the transportation. And anything that affects the transportation would affect the prices of all the commodities. And that is why inflation situation occurs. Now, what happens in an economy when inflation occurs? The central bank of the country starts absorbing money from the economy, like RBI has recently done. When the liquidity is less in the economy, it affects badly the production, the corporates, the, and eventually the, to settle the inflation, we create some other problem for the economy. Now, this is the slide that explains about the bilateral merchandise trade. Bilateral means all the, like, both countries do give and take of the similar nature of the products. So we can see a little bit of the pearls, semi-precious stones, and precious metals, uh, and like, and Russia's imports from India. Russia imports in all products. There is 3.92% of the, treaty of exchanging the products. I will share the PPTs that you can have a look even after this session. Now, this is something that shows the major Indian imports from Russia as a percentage of total Russian export to India. So there are diamonds, there are petroleum products, iron and steel, fertilizers, and paper products. Effects on wholesale price index. Now, you see, this is a very important data. Wherein say 9% of the crude oil related products have a direct share in over 9% of the wholesale price index basket. So crude oil related products have 9% share in the wholesale price index. Now you see, 9%, almost one tenth of the wholesale price index is affected by the oil prices, crude oil prices, in which we have, why crude oil related products are many. Like I would show you probably in one slide. Okay, we'll show you when the ton would come. Like we have rubber products, we have they affect the tire companies, we have kerosene, we have plastic, we have petroleum, directly petroleum, and many more. So they directly or indirectly affect the prices of the commodities, and it would contribute to the inflation if the war persistence continues. So rise in crude oil basket will increase the budget for the Indian households, right? And if the prices increase, if the inflation increase, we will have less disposable income to spend. Our real income would decrease, and this scenario would not be very good for the economy. So, according to WPI, fuel and power, that includes petrol. So, if we include fuel and power also in petrol, it would contribute to like diesel and LPG that holds up to 14.91%, that will be now affected by the import rates of the crude oil. Right. So, nine major problems: petroleum products consumptions. So, superior kerosene oil, lubricants, light diesel oil, and there are many more: high speed diesel, motor spirit, others, fuel oil, airline oil, and much more. Now, as we see the contribution in this pie chart, the wholesale price index, now you can see that petroleum, diesel, and LPG put together have 14.9%, and only petroleum has 9%. We talk about primary article, that is food and non-food articles in the wholesale price index, that is wheat, pulses, minerals, oils and seeds. They have 20%, and rest of the cement, textile, paper and other industries, manufactured products is 65%. So there is a very important part which is affected by fuel, power and other similar aspects, which is 15% roughly, we can say roughly 15%. So the timeline of change is this is what how the prices went up and all, right? When we see the effect on gold, the gold prices in the domestic market crossed 51,400 per 10 grams, and that is somewhere beneficial for some of the companies also. Now, interesting is we cannot say that Russia-Ukraine economic implications are bad for the country all the way. Our domestic industry is being benefited. Our like the it is good for Titan. Now, what happened is, if any of you is interested in connecting these news with the stock market, you see the price of Titan would have increased, but it did not increase because of the because of the other factors. Because of Russia-Ukraine crisis, there was expect an increase was expected in the price of Titan stock, but it did not happen. Now, again, the problem is ICICI Bank. You see, ICICI Bank results were amazing because telecommunication, banking, and insurance were the sectors they were very, very less affected by Russia-Ukraine war. Even if they were not affected by Russia-Ukraine war, what happened? They perform subduedly, they perform substandardly because of the other factors. And other factors were the bad corporate earnings, or the Federal Reserve bond yields, and the finally the repo rate increased by the RBI. So economics has in macroeconomics we have multiple variables that affect the economy. Some of them react negatively, some of them react positively to any change or any breakout of war or any COVID like situation. Now, this is a graph that shows the prices of oil. In February 24, it went up to 103, and you see in December it was as low as below 70, and that in fact affects. Now, you will see in the next quarter, remember what I'm saying, in the next quarterly results, you will see the impact of this on the prices, on the earnings of Berger Paint, earnings of Asian Paint, earnings of tire companies, and earnings of many other, even oil marketing companies. So we saw that oil marketing companies increase their prices in few phases. Every day we had to see there was an increase in the oil prices. And now even today I bought petrol for my car and it was 105 rupees per liter. You see, the this is about gold prices, which we have already discussed. Now, in the aviation industry, again we use fuel, and because of the fuel, there would be, increase. So ATF prices will hit balance sheet of the airlines, and that is what aviation turbine fuel is basically again a part of petrochemical. We all know that the oil is used for running the aircrafts, and a 40% of the increase in cost would actually affect their bottom line, and very badly. So this is the effect on, if we conclude the effect on aviation sector, there is a downfall of 6 to 7% of the aviation sector internationally, based upon because of the oil prices. Now, one of my favorites is paint industry, because I'm a fan of Asian paint stock, Berger paint stock. What happens is that these are the stocks that give you very good return in the long term, and would keep you giving a good return on the long term. But if we see that paint companies use crude oil derivatives. Crude oil derivatives are like the products that are titanium dioxide or as a raw material. However, recently, as per the statement of some of the officials of Asian Paint, even before the war breakout, they do not use petroleum based products in all their products. Paint companies use in some of their products they use, but still there is a good exposure of 40 to 60% of the total expenses in these raw materials. Okay, so Asian Paint, Berger Paint, Indigo Paints would be negatively affected by this war. Now, coming to the auto segment in the tire industry, that tire industry would also be affected badly by this. So, downward moment of 4% we have seen in the earnings. Higher oil prices will put a pressure on the currency. So now we see that there has been rupee dollar pricing has also been not been favorable for India. But you see that if the rupee dollar pricing is not favorable, not good, it is good for the IT companies. And that is why we have been witnessing uh, growth in the market price. Stock market prices are growing with respect to IT companies, especially the mid cap IT companies. In mid cap IT companies, we have Persistent, we have KPIT Technologies, the companies that are doing really good in the industry. Even Mahindra, even Tech Mahindra is doing very good. And it is the call of the brokers and the stock market experts that you can bet on these companies amidst this Russia Ukraine war. So inflation worries are important. See, let me tell you very uh, clearly that the scenario right now is not stable. When we talk about share market, we have a separate segment of like impact on stock market also. So we'll see it. If required, we will discuss on that. If we see the overall scenario of the market always needs stability. Businesses always need stability. This war is making the world unstable. That is very important thing. And when the world is being unstable, it's not a demand pull inflation. Let me tell you very honestly. While okay, absorbing money from the market is one of the traditional and classical way outs in finance, in economics. But putting more light onto it, we have to understand that it is not a demand pull inflation. It is a cost push inflation. And in the cost push inflation, you cannot reduce the demand to a very large extent. Reason being that people are buying the commodities for their use, for their consumption. And when they will be so costly, people would reduce their consumption to the extent they can, and it would badly affect the earnings of corporates. So it's a two-way problem. One problem is corporates are losing their earnings because the input prices are increasing because the raw material prices are increasing. And secondly, if there would be less demand of the product, what suppose I because of the inflation, the prices of car increases, and I don't want to buy car because I want to purchase a cheaper car, but the excuse me, I want to purchase a cheaper car, but the car prices are high because of the, see, even in car, you see the inputs. There is an input of paint, there is an input of metal, that is steel, and there is an input of tires. All three, the prices are increasing, the prices would go high. So the car prices would go high. So my input cost as a manufacturer is increasing, and for customer, the demand is falling. So overall scenario would be a kind of not, I must not say recession, that is a very broad word, but I must say that there would be a cut on sales and profit of the automobile companies. Similarly, it may affect the construction thing also. It may affect the a little bit of the consumer products also, not more, but consumer products also. Suppose the gold prices increases, then we can cut out of the budget of our marriage of our children. That okay, let us, we have a budget of 1 lakh, so keep it 1 lakh. Suppose 10 lakhs, so keep it 10 lakhs only. So let us buy less gold. It may affect the earnings of certain corporate companies in the long run. So, as high impact on currency will, it will increase its value, uh, which means the value of rupee will depreciate and inflation will rise. The value of rupee is estimated by the imports and exports. That's a simple scenario. If the value of rupee is decreases, there is a devaluation in the currency prices. It will give a positive impact. It will have a positive impact on IT companies, the companies that sell outside, because then in $1 the foreign company can buy more number of rupees, and eventually it would positively affect the IT companies and companies having exports to the other nations. But similarly, it would be disastrous for the imports. So if you want to import, you have to spend more rupees to buy $1. So it will be costlier affair for you. So these are some of the commodities as I have already discussed. The costly oil, wheat, impact on Russian Ukraine aviation. These are the invasion. These are some of the data that I would be sharing in the form of PPTs. Now, this is the inflation process. How the war-like situations give rise to inflation. So, this is point one. The first one is if there is a lot of export happening from India, then the value of rupee will increase. But if the Indian imports are more, the value of rupee also depreciates or decreases as much. And this will then lead to the rise in import bills of India. Import bills of, we are importing, imports will be costly for us. And that is also, that would also contribute into inflation because our input cost will be high. See, there are two things, very important two things. One is the rupee has depreciated. So suppose earlier we used to pay 70 rupees to a dollar, now we pay 75 rupees to a dollar. So 5 rupees is increase. While we are importing, we have to pay in dollars, right? So for a thing of 70 rupees, we are in fact paying 75 rupees. But a thing is of 70 rupees now, it was already 60 rupees before war breakout. So we are paying in, it is double costly for us. A 60 rupees thing we are buying in 70 rupees only because of war, but we are buying in 75 rupees because of the depreciation in the currency. So last point is discussing the rise in import bill will cause a negative impact on the economic status of India. So our imports would increase, our exports would have a different pricing, and as a result our balance of payment situation would. But yes, exports would also increase, amount of imports would, the cost of commodity would increase. So for inflation there is a relationship between the uh, prices of the commodity that we import for further production. So this is the conflict leads to fall in rupee. Some data. Cost push inflation, we have discussed that this is a cost push inflation. It is a very important, very crucial situation for the country. Wherever the inflation is more than the standards, it would badly affect the country. These are the estimations of FY 2023, the real GDP growth rate and CPI inflation. So now I don't know how good it will be implemented and how good we can see. And if the oil prices would be 7.1%, sorry, oil prices would be $100 per barrel, it would be 7.1%, and oil at this is 6.5%. So this is the way, this is the example that how in the first row the real GDP growth, how the oil prices can affect the real GDP growth of India. You see, at 25 rupees per barrel, per dollar per barrel would decrease the economic growth by 0.6%, which is very, very significant. This 0.6% means a lot for India. So, and similarly, the consumer price index inflation would increase by 1% if the oil prices are at $125 per barrel. These are the food prices surge in India, wheat. Then we have many other commodities that have increased from 5% to 10% to 20%. Tomatoes and onion. Let us go to the palm oil, which is 20%. Mustard oil is 13% increase after the Russia-Ukraine war breakout. So inflation has long-term effects on the company's bottom line and top line. So for stable corporate earnings, government has to take important steps. And since it is a cost push inflation, absorbing money from the market would not only the resort to solve it out. Government has to create cheaper alternatives of the commodities, and other countries from where we can import, because otherwise the crisis may gear up. So even if the government decreases the excise duties, it can still be done up to a limit. This is also a limitation, the excise duties and all. This is a macro hit, we can go through, right? So these are some of the other information. If 105 to $110 is the price, then India would suffer high inflation with other countries as well. These are supply chain disruptions and morals. So to conclude, I have discussed already many points like inflation, like crude oil prices, like costlier fuel and food, trade and current account deficit because of the rupee scenario. Sectors affected is automobile, paint, petroleum, and all. These are some of the references that I have mentioned. So, overall, what do we conclude from the whole discussion on economic implications of Ukraine and Russia war? The situation hints us not to be dependent on the countries which have bitter relationships with each other. There is a demand for political analysis also, along with the economic analysis, that is there our exposure high to the countries that may fight, that may come to closer to a war or war-like situation, so that our exports and imports are not hampered. One thing. Second thing, we have to be dependent, and we have to diversify our imports and exports to the rest of the world. We have to find good alternatives of the inputs, which is very difficult. Speaking it is very easy, but in fact it is very difficult. But our Prime Minister Modi ji came up with the slogan of Make in India, and which is not a small thing, which is very very important, that we should think of making things in India rather than we should import each and everything from the other countries. But still we are exposed to many territories and countries, more than 200 put together, uh, from where we are importing and to whom we are exporting. But we have to see what is the magnitude of import and export, what we are importing and what alternates we can make, what alternates we can see. So similarly, finding new markets to sell our products worldwide is very very important. And at the same time, finding the new sources, finding the new uh, countries, finding the new markets, finding the new areas from where we can import is equally important. So that is all from my side in this session. I am thankful to the college administration for giving me an opportunity to speak up. I honestly and humbly accept that I'm not expert of economics and international business, but hope I could trigger certain points, certain things I could probably make clear and contribute to whatever little knowledge I do have. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Professor, for a wonderful session we had. So I am extremely thankful to you on behalf of Sri Chandraprabhu Jain College. We really had a very wonderful session today and a most knowledgeable session also. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So, with your permission, sir, may I leave now?
Please.
Sir, we have a more events too. We have a word of gratitude to you.
Oh, please, 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 ma'am. No.
If the only prayer you said in your whole life was thank you, that would suffice. I request Dr. M. Kamu, Assistant Professor, Department of Economics, to propose the word of gratitude. Welcome, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. To for all you, it's given me an special pleasure in deliver to vote of gratitude this national webinar. My very special thanks to chief guest, resource person, and Dr. Arun Mittal who give an inspirational speech in extend by heartfelt thanks to our management principal, Dr. V. Nagajyoti sir, Vice Principal Ma'am, Dr. N. Sujata, heads of the departments of faculty members, dear students who have helped to make this national webinar a great success. I have to specially mention the contribution made by our system manager, Mr. P. Balaji sir, in all the technical works. In once again, thank you. Thank you for all attend the. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
So
Thank you
any
so much,
question
sir,
and answer session, man?
to spend this precious time to us.